Beloved chosen ones, have you ever noticed how the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who tremble when you finally say no? Have you ever wondered why your silence stings them more than your words ever did? That's because when a chosen one walks away, not in rage, not in tears, but in stillness and power, it forces everyone to face a truth they never wanted to see. You were never dependent on them. They were dependent on your light. And when that light walks out the door, it leaves behind shadows they can no longer hide in. Let me pause here and say something important. Thank you. Thank you to each one of you who has supported this space through Super Thanks. Whether you've given once, often, or even just considered it, please know your generosity doesn't go unnoticed. It keeps this message alive. But even if you haven't donated, even if you never plan to, I'm still grateful beyond words for you simply being here. Your presence, your energy, your engagement, it means everything. You are part of this movement simply by showing up and standing in your truth. Now, let's get to it, because this isn't just another message, it's a spiritual reckoning. This is the moment we put language to what you've always felt, but couldn't fully explain. The moment we stop sugarcoating betrayal and start naming it. The moment we stop calling our endurance loyalty and begin to understand it was conditioning. They never thought you'd walk. They counted on your guilt, your empathy, your hope. They built their power on your patience. But chosen one, you woke up, and they never saw it coming. You weren't supposed to leave, remember? You were supposed to bend, to stay small, to stay useful. They never expected you to look in the mirror and say, I deserve more than this. But you did. And now their world, built on the assumption that you'd always be there, is collapsing without its foundation. That foundation was you, the glue, the grace, the grounding force they abused while pretending to appreciate. But when you quietly packed your power and walked out, you took their illusion with you. They'll call you cold, say you changed. But here's the truth, they never really knew you. They only knew the version of you who tolerated their nonsense, who smiled through pain, who carried burdens that weren't yours to carry. What they're grieving isn't love, it's access. What they miss isn't you. It's the control, the convenience, the comfort of having someone who would always come back no matter how many times they failed to show up right. And now, in your absence, they're learning a lesson the hard way. Chosen ones don't return to cages they've already outgrown. And we don't explain our liberation to people who mistook our loyalty for weakness. You didn't leave for revenge, you left for resurrection. You didn't vanish because you were bitter, you vanished because you were done bleeding for people who never brought you bandages. That silence they hear now, that cold space they feel, that isn't just loneliness, it's justice. So, chosen one, was your exit quiet? Did you walk away without closure? Did you finally stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you? If so, type 777 in the comments. Let this moment be your declaration that you choose peace over pleasing, that you choose growth over guilt, that you choose yourself. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to this new version of you that no longer apologizes for walking away from what doesn't align with your soul. Because here, in this space, you are not weak for leaving. You are wise. You are not cold. You are clear. And your silence, it's not emptiness. It's sacred. It's divine. And it speaks louder than their lies ever could. So stay with me. Don't click away. Because what's coming next will confirm everything you've been sensing in your spirit. We're going to break it all down, word by word, truth by truth. This isn't just a message, it's a mirror. And by the end of it, you won't just feel understood, you'll feel free. God's chosen ones. They never thought you'd leave, but it's done. Number 1, you were there but never seen, and now they're haunted by your absence. Chosen one, how many rooms have you stood in where your heart screamed for recognition, but your presence was treated like furniture, silent, dependable, unseen? They never really lost you. They lost the privilege of access, the honor of having someone who was rare enough to stay when everything in you wanted to leave. And now, all they hold is the echo of what they never cherished. Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own life? Like you were living beside people, but never truly with them? They sit in disbelief, replaying every moment, asking themselves, how could you walk away? But the deeper truth is, they lost you long before you took your first physical step out the door. You had already withdrawn inch by inch, with every moment you were overlooked, every time your presence was taken for granted. You were just going through the motions, weren't you? Saying the right things at the right times, performing the emotional labor they expected, wearing the mask of calm while you silently broke. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. They didn't see the burnout in your eyes or the heaviness in your silence. They confused your patience with passivity, your silence with submission. But you knew deep down you had been gone long before they noticed you were leaving. Think of Marilyn Monroe. Everyone saw the glamour, the smile, the presence, but few saw the loneliness. She once said, "I restore myself when I'm alone." They adored the image, but never truly honored the woman. Just like you, chosen one, seen for your shine, never for your soul. They assumed you'd always be there. You had become a constant, a background melody in their chaotic world. The one who showed up without being asked, gave without being thanked, and stayed when no one else did. They grew addicted to your reliability like people do to sunrise. Always there, never questioned. But when was the last time they asked if you wanted to be there? Do not cast your pearls before swine. Matthew 7:6. Have you noticed how people stop checking on something once they believe it's permanent? They never asked if you were breathing through the pain, never asked if you were happy, never asked if you still wanted to be part of it all. They assumed your stillness was peace, but it was resignation. Your presence was never their entitlement, it was your offering. Think of Robin Williams. He brought joy to millions, but suffered silently. They loved what he gave, but few stopped to ask what he needed. Just like you, chosen one, they loved your role, not your reality. The moment you decided you were no longer going to shrink for the comfort of others, the moment you decided that self-betrayal wasn't loyalty, that was the day you woke up. That was your deliverance. That was the day heaven nodded in agreement and said, "It's time. Come out from among them and be separate," says the Lord. 2 Corinthians 6:17. They tell themselves you changed, that you became cold. But no, you became clear. You stopped waiting for a permission slip to honor your worth. You realized you were not born to play small in someone else's story. Consider Dave Chappelle. He walked away from a $50 million deal, not because he was weak, but because he refused to sell his soul. He left when it was hardest, not because he lost value, but because he realized his value. And now they sit in the silence they never thought they'd have to face. The space you once filled now echoes louder than any conversation ever did. And what haunts them most is not that you're gone, it's that they never really had you, because they never bothered to see you. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians 1:10. Let them mourn, let them romanticize the version of you they never respected. But don't go back, don't re-enter a space that required your absence to value your existence. This time, chosen one, you're not coming back. Number 2. They drained your light. Now they stumble in the dark. You gave warmth, clarity, and power. You lit their path when they couldn't see their own, but they never asked, what happens when a flame gives more than it receives? Did they ever once stop and wonder who fuels you? Chosen one, they mistook your strength for surplus. Your light felt endless to them because you were always giving. And when you burned brighter in their darkness, they assumed it was your purpose to keep burning. But no one asked what it cost you. Do you feel like you were only loved for what you gave, not who you were? Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40:30-31. They saw you as the problem solver, the emotional anchor, the bringer of peace. But not once did they ask, do you need rest? Instead, they bathed in your energy and called it loyalty. They never saw the exhaustion, the flickering, the moments when your spark grew faint. Princess Diana radiated elegance and compassion to the world, yet was often isolated and misunderstood behind palace walls. She gave, and when she could give no more, they blamed her for falling dim. Just like you, chosen one. People adored your light, not the cost it took to shine. Light requires fuel, respect, protection, and when none of that was offered, you began to fade. You didn't dim out of vengeance. You faded because you were depleted, because giving endlessly with no return is not love. It's slow erosion. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. And now they miss you, not because they loved you right, but because they loved the comfort you gave them. They miss the way you made chaos feel manageable, the way your presence buffered reality. They don't miss you, they miss the benefits of you. Think of Chadwick Boseman. His strength inspired millions. Even while he silently battled cancer, he gave light while fighting darkness. And when he left, the world was stunned. His absence revealed just how much he carried, just like you. No one realized the weight you bore until you walked away, and now they scramble in confusion, trying to replicate your light with artificial flames. But your glow wasn't something they could replace. It wasn't borrowed, it was divine. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. They thought they had more time, more chances to use your energy without nourishing your soul. But when you finally left, you took with you the fire that kept everything from falling apart. Remember Whitney Houston? Her voice lit up the world. But behind the music, her spirit wore thin from the weight of being everyone's strength but her own. Her gift was used, but her soul was misunderstood. Just like you. Glorified for the shine, forgotten in the shadows. Now they must learn to walk without the glow they never deserved to begin with. Let them stumble. Let them sit in the silence of their own choices. Because this time, chosen one, you've taken your light with you. Number 3, you shattered the cage they built for you, and they never saw it coming. Chosen one, do you remember the first time you felt that quiet nudge in your spirit, the whisper that said, "This is not where you belong"? You may not have had the words back then, just a strange discomfort, a sense of tightening in your chest every time they spoke to you like you owed them your obedience. They wrapped you in chains, but called it care. They boxed you in and labeled it protection. But deep down, didn't you always know something wasn't right? The truth is, they never feared losing your body. They feared you discovering your freedom. They never wanted you to leave. Not because they loved you, but because they depended on your silence, your obedience, your willingness to shrink so their egos could feel safe. Have you ever wondered how much of your life was spent dimming your light just so others wouldn't feel overshadowed? It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Galatians 5:1. They never built you a home, they built you a cage and gave it a name that sounded noble: duty, family, faithfulness. They praised your loyalty while suffocating your voice. But the moment you started asking questions, challenging the structure, taking up space, they panicked. Not because they loved you, but because they could no longer use you. Just like Brittany Griner, who was detained abroad in a system that tried to define her worth by their rules. Until the world saw the injustice and demanded her return, she broke through more than just bars. She broke the silence of a system that thought it could own her. When you broke out of the role they assigned you, you didn't just change. You became uncontainable. That's why they're angry. That's why they're calling you ungrateful. Because you exposed the lie they had built their control on. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted a role player. You, chosen one, were never meant to play small. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. They never expected you to see the cage. They thought the bars were invisible, that their version of care would keep you compliant. But then came the moment, a conversation, a dismissal, a sigh that finally snapped something inside you. And suddenly you saw it all. You saw the limits, the manipulation, the boundaries that were never about love, but about control. It reminds me of Simone Biles, who chose to step away from the Olympics not out of weakness, but out of self-respect. The world expected her to perform, no matter the personal cost, but she refused to let their expectations define her worth. Just like you, chosen one, you walked away not because you were broken, but because you were finally whole enough to say, no more. You didn't leave them. You left the identity they gave you, the one that served them, not you. You left behind the echoes of your silence, the weight of their expectations, the myth that being good means being small. And they stayed behind, stuck in the roles they chose for themselves, unable to follow you into freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17. And now, as you rise, they watch from behind the bars they tried to place around you, haunted by the realization that you were never theirs to keep. You were simply allowing them close, until you remembered who you are. Think of Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for decades but never let the walls contain his vision. When he was released, he didn't return to bitterness. He returned to purpose. His freedom dismantled an entire system. And yours will too. So, chosen one, keep rising. You were never meant to be caged. Let them call you rebellious. Let them call you difficult. But what they'll never say out loud is this: you were right to leave, and now you're finally free. Number 4. Their power was always an illusion, and you exposed the lie. Chosen one, have you realized yet that the power they claim to have over you only existed because you believed in it? They cloaked their control in the language of love. We're just looking out for you, they said. But have you noticed how that love only showed up when you started to change? Their power wasn't power. It was fear wearing a mask. They never wanted partnership. They wanted permission to keep you small, to make every decision for you, but call it help, to blur your boundaries, then blame you when you reacted. Have you ever felt guilty for simply wanting to breathe? For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7. They manipulated you by dangling love like a reward, only to withdraw it when you stopped obeying. They whispered just enough validation to keep you from walking out, but your soul knew. Every time you bent yourself to fit their frame, a piece of your spirit cried out. And finally, you listened. Remember Meghan Markle, who was vilified by a system that preferred her silent and compliant? She walked away from royalty, not for status, but for peace. That's power. That's what happens when someone decides they will no longer be ruled, by expectations that choke the soul. They never expected you to leave. Not really. They thought guilt would trap you, that the roots of obligation were too deep to cut. But the moment you realized their power was conditional, that it lived only as long as your submission, it crumbled. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. 1 John 4:4. You didn't leave in rage, you left in revelation. You saw the game, you saw the script, and you walked off the stage. That's what frightened them most, not your rebellion, but your clarity, not your distance, but your decision. Now they sit in confusion, asking themselves, how did we lose them? But they never had you. They had a version of you, curated, trimmed down, controlled. But the real you, that was a divine force waiting to awaken. Think of Malala Yousafzai, whose voice threatened an entire regime simply because she refused to be silenced. They feared her education, her voice, her power, just like they feared yours, chosen one. And like her, you rose above it. They thought they could rebuild their control, but their empire was built on the false assumption that you would never choose yourself. Now that you have, they have no blueprint, no leverage, no hold. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. Psalm 28:7. They tried to label your exit as betrayal, but the only betrayal was asking you to give up your God-given identity to serve their ego. And now, they're left with nothing but the ruins of the illusion. And you're finally walking in truth, unbound, undeniable, unapologetically chosen. Number 5. Your absence became the black hole they never saw coming. Chosen one, have you ever wondered how something invisible, like your presence, could leave such a loud silence when it's gone? You were never just part of their world, you were its gravity. And now that you're gone, they're discovering just how much of their lives depended on you. But why did it take your absence for them to finally recognize your value? They thought they could replace you, that someone else could step in, mimic your strength, echo your wisdom. But what they didn't understand is this: you weren't a placeholder, you were the pulse. You were the rhythm that kept their world from falling into chaos. And now your absence isn't just a missing piece, it's a black hole, a spiritual void where stability used to live. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118 verse 22. Like air, they never noticed you, until they couldn't breathe without you. Have you ever been the one holding everything together, only to watch it collapse the moment you stop? When Anthony Bourdain passed, the world didn't just lose a chef, it lost a quiet voice that connected cultures, carried empathy, and turned meals into healing. His absence revealed the depth of what he held. Just like you, your presence stitched up emotional wounds. Your energy filled the gaps. Your quiet gave others peace. Now, they sit in rooms that once echoed with your laughter, your balance, your silent strength. And everything feels off. Their routines no longer flow. Their comforts feel hollow. Their distractions don't numb. Have they told you yet that life just isn't the same? Or are they too prideful to admit that you were never optional? You were essential. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Matthew 5:13. They thought you'd always be there, that no matter how little they appreciated you, you'd still show up. Have you noticed how people only begin to value light when they're drowning in darkness? Look at Frida Kahlo, who carried unthinkable physical pain behind her art. Her work held together the fragments of her world, and after her death it took decades for the world to realize the genius they ignored. Sound familiar? You were the bridge, the buffer, the calm in the storm, and now they're suffocating in the silence you left behind. They try to fill the void with new people, new habits, new noise, but none of it fits. because your presence wasn't just nice, it was divinely assigned. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. They lost more than a person. They lost the version of their life that only worked because you were carrying the unspoken weight. Now they're waking up to a bitter truth. They mistook stability for something they were entitled to, not something you graciously gave. When Paul Walker died, the Fast and Furious franchise didn't just lose a lead actor, they lost its soul. The grief wasn't just about fame, it was about losing the irreplaceable heartbeat of the family. And that's what you were chosen one, the heartbeat. So, why should you return to a space that only saw your value once you left it? Why should you pour yourself into vessels that only realized their worth when they shattered? Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs. Matthew 7:6. Let the echo of your absence teach them what your presence never could. And when they come searching, don't look back. Not this time, this scar they carry. It's not punishment, it's consequence. Number 6, they fed off your strength. Now they're starving without it. Chosen one, have you ever carried so much for others that you forgot what it felt like to breathe freely? You were the reservoir everyone drank from, the anchor when their storms came crashing in. But did anyone stop to ask, how are you holding up? Or did they just assume you'd never break? They fed on your resilience like it was infinite. Every emotional meltdown they had, you caught it. Every chaotic moment, you stabilized it. They mistook your consistency for convenience. But what they failed to realize is that your strength wasn't theirs to consume. It was God's gift to you. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Have you ever noticed how the strongest one in the room is always the one least checked on? You made it look easy. You made dysfunction feel safe. And because you carried so much without collapsing, they thought you never would. Think of Naomi Osaka, who stepped away from tennis, not because she lacked talent, but because she prioritized her mental peace. That strength was misunderstood, even criticized, just like you. They called your boundaries selfish, but never asked what it cost you to keep showing up. You gave and gave. And when you finally stopped, the world they built on your back began to tremble. The masks came off, the cracks showed, and now they panic, not because they miss you, but because without your strength, they're exposed. The Lord is my strength and my shield. In him my heart trusts, and I am helped. Psalm 28:7. You were never their property. You were their lifeline. And now they're drowning in the same chaos you once shielded them from. Consider Heath Ledger. His genius lit up the screen, but few knew the weight he carried off screen. His quiet pain mirrored the way you held others up, even as you crumbled in silence. And now, in your absence, they finally realize how much they leaned on you without giving anything back. They assumed you'd always say yes, that you'd always hold their mess. But chosen one, weren't you created for more than being someone else's safety net? God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Psalm 46:1. Now they're scrambling, now they're gasping. But isn't it telling that the moment you chose peace, their lives began to unravel? That the strength they mocked, diminished, or overlooked was the only thing keeping them upright? Look at Serena Williams, who carried the weight of not just a sport, but generations of expectations. Her departure from the game shook the world. Why? Because the world got used to leaning on her excellence. Just like them, they got used to leaning on you. So if your strength was so essential, why did they treat it like it was disposable? If your energy was so nourishing, why did they leave you to starve? Let them panic. Let them face the wreckage. You're not here to rescue them anymore. You're here to rebuild yourself. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. Isaiah 40:31. And you, chosen one, you're already rising. Number 7, they can copy you, but they'll never be you, because real can't be replicated. Chosen one, have you ever seen someone try to become you after you've left? Mimicking your mannerisms, echoing your words, wearing your essence like a costume. It's both comical and tragic, because here's what they never understood. You were never a role. They were never your director. They thought they could replace you, that someone else could fill the void your presence once so effortlessly occupied. But what they forgot is this: you didn't just occupy space, you shifted atmospheres. You were the original, unfiltered, unapologetic, and real can't be photocopied. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139 verse 14. Have you ever asked yourself, why were they so quick to find a substitute? Because they were desperate to pretend nothing changed. But it did. It shattered. And no matter how hard they try, they can't recreate what they never took time to understand. Look at Amy Winehouse, her raw voice, her style, her soul. Imitated by many, duplicated by none. What made her powerful was her pain-soaked truth. The industry tried to mass-produce her energy, but the world still aches for the real thing. That's you, chosen one. They didn't just lose a person, they lost an essence. Your fire? It wasn't taught, it was divine. Your words? They weren't scripted, they were soul-born. You didn't fit into molds, you melted them. That's what scared them. That's why, after all this time, they're still trying to manufacture your magic. But authenticity is a spiritual inheritance. It can't be borrowed. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. Ephesians 2:10. Now they surround themselves with noise, with shallow laughs, plastic people, borrowed wisdom. But nothing fits. The conversations feel rehearsed. The energy is stale. Because what you carried wasn't charm, it was anointing. And anointing can't be forged in imitation. It's earned through fire. Look at Robin Williams. His comedy could not be taught. It came from his depths, from a place no school could reach. After his passing, the world realized there was no replacement, only gratitude for what once was. And so it is with you. They thought you were just another chapter, but you were the binding, the soul of the story. And now the pages don't read the same. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Matthew 5:37. They're scrambling, trying to recruit your spirit without honoring your sacrifice. But haven't you noticed? It's not working, because what you gave wasn't just presence, it was purpose. And you can't replicate purpose without purity. Think of Nipsey Hussle. His authenticity created a movement, not just a moment. And even now, his legacy isn't just remembered, it's studied, revered, felt. That's you. Your exit left behind more than absence, it left truth. So, why go back to a place where your originality was mistaken for inconvenience? Why make yourself smaller when the world already struggles to carry your weight? The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life. Job 33:4. Let them keep copying, let them keep rehearsing, but know this, you were never meant to be replaced, you were meant to be remembered. Number 8. Your absence became their mirror, and now they can't unsee the truth. Chosen one, did you know that sometimes the loudest scream comes from silence? When you left, it didn't just hurt them, it unmasked them. Your absence was a revelation, a mirror they couldn't shatter, because as long as you were there, they never had to face themselves. You were their buffer, the balm over their brokenness. But when you left, so did the shield. Now, every crack in their story echoes louder. They're not just grieving you, they're grieving the version of themselves that only looked good next to you. Be sure your sin will find you out. Numbers 32:23. They leaned on you because it was easier than growing. Your presence gave them a way to deflect, to delay. But now the lights are on, and the reflection, it's raw, ugly, honest. Ever seen someone spiral, not because they lost something, but because they finally realized they never deserved it to begin with? Think of Princess Diana. Her departure from the royal fold didn't just shake the institution, it exposed it. Her authenticity forced the world to question what we called tradition. Just like you, chosen one, your walkaway didn't just hurt their ego, it dismantled their illusion. They're asking themselves the questions now, the ones you hoped they'd ask while you were still there. Why didn't I appreciate them? Why did I keep wounding someone who only showed up for me? But now it's too late. The damage is done, and the mirror doesn't lie. Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity. Proverbs 22:8. They used your kindness as a cushion for their cruelty, your patience as a patch for their poor character, your loyalty as a license to keep hurting you. And when you finally walked, the silence screamed louder than your words ever could. Look at Avicii. The music kept playing while his soul broke in the background. When he stepped away, the world realized what it cost him to keep entertaining. Just like you, they loved your light, but never asked what it was burning. Now they're left with the reflection, and that reflection is painful, because you weren't just good to them, you were better than they ever admitted, and losing you forced them to confront the worst parts of themselves. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Ephesians 4:25. You were their mirror. You showed them what love could look like, what peace felt like, what selflessness lived like. But instead of rising to meet you, they exploited it. Think of Selena Quintanilla, betrayed by someone she trusted deeply. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a mirror, showing the world what happens when genuine love is met with selfish hands. That betrayal echoes, and so does yours. So let me ask, why should you feel guilty for leaving when your presence was the only thing holding them together? Why should your heart break for people who shattered your reflection just to protect their comfort? The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Let the mirror stay cracked. Let the silence speak. Because you, chosen one, were not just a presence in their life. You were the truth they weren't ready to see, and now they'll never unsee it. Number 9. They gambled on your guilt and lost everything. Chosen one, how many times were you made to feel guilty for simply putting yourself first? How often did you silence your own needs just to avoid being called selfish? For far too long, they played a silent but deadly game with your heart. And the currency they used wasn't love, it was guilt. They didn't shackle you with chains. They wrapped you in obligation. They knew the kind of heart you carried, loyal, sacrificial, deeply empathetic, and they used it against you. Every time you thought about leaving, they whispered, "Poison. After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me." They never had to raise their voice. Their power was in the pressure, quiet, subtle, constant. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. How many times did you stay, not because it was right, but because you felt wrong for leaving? How often did your spirit scream for rest while you nodded yes with a heavy heart? They made you feel like loving yourself was betrayal. But now you know better, don't you? Just like Taylor Swift, who was constantly criticized for reclaiming her own narrative, from music rights to personal boundaries. The world tried to shame her for asserting power, but she chose herself anyway. And look what happened, she rose. You gave and gave until it bled your soul dry. And still, it wasn't enough. because it never was about what you gave, it was about how much control they could keep. But one day, clarity hit you like holy lightning. You realized the guilt was a leash, not a bond, and you broke it. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Galatians 5:1. You saw it, didn't you? The manipulation, the pattern, the way they held your loyalty hostage. And when you walked away, not with fury, but with finality, it broke them. Because you didn't just leave, you left without guilt. And that's what they never expected. Just like Keanu Reeves, a man who's known both fame and private sorrow, who stepped back from toxic systems, always choosing dignity and peace. You did the same. You chose alignment over appeasement, peace over guilt. Now they sit with nothing but their own reflection, no one to emotionally manipulate, no soft heart left to mold. Because once a chosen one realizes they're not obligated to suffer, they become untouchable. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. Matthew 5:37. Look at Theyll, who took time off from the spotlight to heal, to raise her child, to choose a quieter path. The world questioned her absence, but her comeback silenced them all. That's you, coming back to yourself. They thought you'd return, guilt in hand, heart on your sleeve, but you didn't, because you realized something holy. You never owed them your destruction, and now they're haunted not just by your absence, but by the weapon they can't use anymore. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36. Number 10. You were their comfort, now you're their wake-up call. Chosen one, some people don't learn until comfort is taken from them. They confuse your consistency with entitlement. They assume your compassion is endless. But how long did you suffer in silence just to keep their world spinning? How many times did you minimize your pain just so they wouldn't feel discomfort? They thought they had time to manipulate, time to ignore, time to expect you to carry the weight of their indecision, their chaos, their disrespect. But the clock ran out, and when you walked away, it wasn't quiet. It was a spiritual earthquake. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1. They called it abandonment, but really it was accountability. You didn't leave to hurt them, you left to heal yourself, and your absence, it became the very thing they never prepared for. Look at Michael Jackson, a man whose genius was expected to perform no matter the cost. The world never imagined a stage without him, and when that stage fell silent, everyone woke up. The silence shook the world. Just like yours, they're trying to cope, trying to fill the void with noise and distractions. But what do you do when silence becomes the loudest voice in the room? That's what they're learning now, that your forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was grace. And now that grace is gone. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. They underestimated the cost of your presence. They thought they were doing you a favor by allowing you to stay, but they never realized you were the favor. You were the balance, the compass, the anchor. Remember Rihanna? She stepped away from music to build her empire, to live on her own terms. Many fans were impatient, but she knew. You don't owe your presence to anyone who won't value your peace. Now they stare at the wreckage, wondering how it all collapsed. But the truth? You were the glue. And they didn't just break your trust, they broke the very bond that held it all together. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. They're not just grieving your love. They're grieving the ease, the comfort, the protection that came with you. And it stings. Because for the first time, they're sitting in what they created. And it doesn't feel like home without you. Just like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, whose simple presence made generations feel safe. When he left television, a whole world of children felt the shift. That's the kind of presence you carried. Irreplaceable, healing, rare. So, why should you be their safe space when they were your storm? Why should you feel guilty for walking away from chaos you never caused? He heals the broken-hearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147, verse 3. Let them wake up. Let them sit with their regrets. But as for you, chosen one, you're not their comfort anymore. You're the lesson they never thought they'd need. And you're never looking back. Number 11. You were the fire in their grey world, and now they can't unfeel the heat. Chosen one, do you know what it means to be someone's first glimpse of color in a life they've only ever seen in black and white? Do you realize how rare it is to walk into a room and shift its entire temperature without even trying? That's who you were, not just a presence, not just a person. You were the spark, the disruption, the one moment of brilliance in a life they had convinced themselves was good enough. They lived in grayscale, safe, small, and silent. And then you walked in, and suddenly everything felt alive. You didn't blend in, you stood out, and not because you were loud or demanding, but because you burned with something they had forgotten, existed, purpose. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. How many people have secretly hated you, not because you hurt them, but because your mere existence reminded them they stopped dreaming. You didn't have to say a word. Your energy screamed possibility. Your vision, your passion, your refusal to settle, it all revealed the truth they worked so hard to bury. And that truth? They could be more, but they chose to remain less. Look at James Dean, a young man who embodied rebellion, risk, and passion. He lit up the screen not with perfection, but with authenticity. And even decades later, his legacy burns. That's what happens when fire touches something dull. It brands it, just like you did. They mistook your fire for a threat, but the fire wasn't dangerous. Their fear of it was, because it's easier to resent the one who burns than to build the courage to ignite your own flame. Do not put out the Spirit's fire. 1 Thessalonians 5:19. They claimed to admire you, but they never had the capacity to match you. They didn't want to rise to your level. They wanted to keep you within reach, but under control, because if you soared, they'd be left behind. And they knew it. Think of Lady Gaga. Her originality shattered norms, and people either worshipped her or mocked her, but no one could ignore her. Why? Because she was never afraid to be too much, and neither were you. They loved your proximity to greatness, just not the responsibility of it. Your hunger made them uncomfortable, your drive exhausted them, and your refusal to settle. It was offensive to people who had already convinced themselves mediocrity was peace. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17. But here's the plot twist. They didn't just lose a person when you walked away. They lost the only source of light in their fog. You reminded them that they were built for more. And when you left, they were forced to face the truth. They never intended to grow with you. They only intended to stand beside you, hoping your fire would make them look bright. Just like Steve Jobs, who was once pushed out of Apple only to be begged back years later. His vision made people uncomfortable until they realized they couldn't build without him. You were that for them, the visionary they tried to dim, the fire they couldn't control. And now that fire is gone. Fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you. 2 Timothy 1:6. Now their world is colder, quieter, duller. They tried to return to routine, to grey skies and grey conversations, but it's not working. Because once you've tasted extraordinary, average no longer satisfies. And now they sit in silence, haunted not by what you said, but by what you were. They lost more than love, more than loyalty. They lost the only chance they had to break the cycle of comfort. You didn't just challenge them, you exposed them. You didn't just brighten the room, you revealed the cracks in the walls. Think of Kurt Cobain, whose artistry shook the world awake. He wasn't safe, he wasn't polished, but he was real. And after he left, the echo of his impact never stopped. You too were that echo, the one thing that made their mediocrity unbearable. So, chosen one, why stay in places that resent your growth? Why dim your flame so others don't feel the pressure to evolve? You were never meant to be manageable. You were meant to be magnificent. Let them miss you. Let them sit in the chill of what they once called just another day. You were never just another anything. You were the fire, the catalyst, the divine disruption. And now they'll carry the cold, empty truth that you were the best thing they never had the courage to keep. Number 12. They wanted to own you, not love you. And now that you're free, they're the ones breaking. Chosen one, have you ever felt like someone didn't love you for who you are, but for what you gave them? Have you looked back and realized that what they called love was really about control dressed in affection? That's because some people don't want connection, they want possession, and you were never made to be someone's property. They didn't cherish your presence, they depended on it for power. Your light, your warmth, your steady spirit, it gave them structure, image, validation, but never mistake this, they weren't drawn to your freedom, they were terrified of it. You were bought at a price, do not become slaves of men. 1 Corinthians 7:23. Have you ever noticed how the moment you start standing tall, drawing boundaries, or saying no, the love turns cold? That's not love leaving, that's control collapsing. They never respected your soul, they just liked having access to it. Look at Britney Spears, whose career was controlled for years under a conservatorship that turned her into a puppet. The world cheered her on stage, but behind the curtain she was suffocating, and when she broke free, their power shattered, just like yours did. You weren't a character in their story, you were the author of your own. But they rewrote you, edited you, tried to publish a version of you that made them look good. And when you refused to play the role, their narrative fell apart. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again. Galatians 5:1. They mistook your kindness for submission, your silence for consent, your loyalty for permission to abuse your spirit. But, chosen one, you were never theirs to shape. You were God's masterpiece, not their tool. Think of Bob Marley, whose music carried deep messages of liberation and truth. Authorities tried to silence him, to mold him into something safer, but he remained uncaged, just like you, truthful, raw, and untamed. They expected you to stay where they put you, smile when it was convenient, keep adjusting your shape so they didn't have to confront their own. But when you stepped out of that frame, when you said, enough, they weren't mourning your love. They were mourning their illusion of dominance. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36. Let's ask the real questions now. Why did they praise you when you bent, but punish you when you stood? Why did they only show concern when you finally stopped complying? Why did they build a life that required your obedience, not your joy? Think about Jean-Michel Basquiat, a visionary artist whose talent was often co-opted by the same systems that refused to respect his voice. They loved the art, but not the man. Just like them, they loved the image of you, not your essence. And now that you're gone, the image is gone too. The version they created, the obedient, moldable, agreeable version, never existed. It was their projection, their puppet, and now they're haunted by the fact that you woke up and you walked away. The spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Romans 8:15. They're not grieving you, they're grieving the loss of control, the loss of being able to twist your loyalty into a leash, the loss of owning something they were never worthy of in the first place. Think of Prince, the legendary musician who changed his name to a symbol just to break free from the corporate system that tried to own his identity. That's the level of spiritual warfare you've risen from. You redefined yourself, and in doing so, you exposed them. So, chosen one, why shrink to fit a frame that was never made to honor you? Why let someone hold the pen to a story that God already authored? You didn't just walk away from them, you walked back to yourself. And now they sit in silence, not missing you, but mourning the loss of a tool they can no longer use, a script they can no longer cast you in, a cage they can no longer lock. Because you were never meant to be owned, you were meant to be free. Number 13. You left without begging, and that's what shattered them the most. Chosen one, have you ever noticed how silence can say more than 1,000 words? Some exits don't need a door slammed or a grand farewell. Some of the loudest departures are the ones that happen quietly, decisively, without a single wasted breath. And that's exactly what you did. They expected drama, a final outburst, maybe even a desperate attempt to make them understand. But instead, you gave them the one thing they weren't prepared to face: stillness, finality, closure without conversation. And in that silence, you dismantled their illusion of control. The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Have you ever realized that the strongest move isn't always loud? That true power doesn't perform for attention. You didn't leave to prove a point. You left because the point had already been made. You just stopped repeating it. Look at Greta Garbo, the Hollywood legend who walked away from fame at the peak of her career. No drama, no press tours, just a quiet exit into a life of peace. The industry never got over it, because true power doesn't explain itself. It simply moves on. You didn't owe them a breakdown. You didn't owe them one last plea to see your worth, because the truth is, you never needed their validation to begin with. You weren't leaving to be seen. You were leaving because you finally saw yourself. Do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Matthew 7:6. And now they are haunted by what you didn't say, because you left without asking for closure, without begging for clarity. You didn't wait for their blessing. You didn't shrink, stutter, or stall. You just walked away. And that chosen one was your final act of sovereignty. Think of Zayn Malik, who quietly left One Direction at the height of global success. The media expected fireworks, but what they got was freedom. No apology, no performance, just a man reclaiming his path. That's what you did. You chose peace over presence. And here's what hurts them most. They never imagined the game could end without their permission. They mistook your patience for dependence, your silence for submission. But all along, your calm was a countdown. And when it hit 0, you were gone. He who walks with the wise becomes wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Proverbs 13:20. They're calling you selfish now, cold, heartless. But what they really mean is, how dare you love yourself more than our manipulation? What they really mean is, how dare you wake up? But answer this, chosen one. How is it selfish to finally choose freedom over bondage? How is it heartless to stop shrinking for those who refuse to grow? Look at Maya Angelou. Her calm, poised presence hid a fiery strength. She didn't have to yell to command attention. She didn't need chaos to make a point. Her silence held weight. Her dignity burned. So does yours. Your absence isn't just a missing piece. It's a mirror, a reflection they can't escape. Every unanswered text, every empty seat, every task they assumed you'd handle, it all speaks now. your silence is louder than their accusations. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. They didn't just lose you. They lost the illusion that they could keep you. They lost their fallback plan, their emotional punching bag, their guaranteed yes. And now, they're standing in the wreckage of a system that only worked because you allowed it to. Think of Dave Chappelle, who walked away from a $50 million deal, not out of arrogance, but clarity. He saw the game and he chose peace, and the world tried to call him crazy until they realized he was free. That's where you are now. Finally, fully, completely free. Free from emotional slavery, free from guilt-based loyalty, free from the lie that says you must stay small to be loved. And they'll have to adjust to a world that no longer revolves around your light. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Matthew 5:37. So, chosen one, are you ready to step fully into this freedom without apology? Are you ready to walk boldly without looking back? Because it's over. Not just the relationship, not just the connection, but the lie that they could keep you in a space you outgrew long ago. You didn't lose anything. You awakened. And now, you're finally walking in the direction of your destiny, without noise, without begging, and without regret. Chosen ones, if you're still here, still watching, still breathing through these words like they were written for your soul, it's because they were. This entire message, every truth spoken, every silence you resonated with, was never just about them. It was about you. It was about the version of you that's been rising quietly behind the scenes, breaking free in stages, healing in silence, preparing for this very moment, the moment you finally saw it all clearly and chose yourself. You didn't leave with vengeance. You didn't need noise or a dramatic exit. You left with dignity, with self-respect, and with the kind of peace that only comes when you realize your presence was a gift they were never equipped to handle. They never expected you to really walk. They thought you'd hover near the door, waiting for closure, for understanding, for them to finally wake up. But instead, you closed that chapter softly, with clarity in your eyes and silence in your footsteps. And now they're stunned, not just because you're gone, but because you never turned back. There was no explanation, no justification, only the finality of a decision they never believed you were strong enough to make. But you were. And the moment you left without begging, without pleading, you shattered the lie they told themselves, that they were in control. They weren't. You were just patient. And now, that patience has turned into power. I want to take this moment to thank you deeply, sincerely, for walking this journey with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for seeing yourself in these truths and standing in them with courage. Whether this message reached you during a moment of heartbreak or healing, whether you're still figuring it out or already walking in freedom, know this. Your presence here means you're not alone. You're part of something sacred, a movement of chosen ones waking up to their divine worth, their authority, and their purpose. And if you've been touched by this message, if it stirred something real in you, I humbly invite you to support this work through Super Thanks. Your support allows messages like this to reach more souls still stuck in silence, still unsure if they're allowed to choose themselves. But whether you're able to give or not, know this. I see you, I value you, and I'm beyond grateful just to have shared this space with you. Every view, every comment, every moment of reflection matters. Your energy here is not taken for granted. Whether you click Super Thanks or simply sit with these words in stillness, your presence is enough. Your healing is enough. You are enough. So I bless you now. I bless your path forward. May your silence continue to speak louder than their noise. May your decisions be rooted in love, not fear. May your boundaries remain firm, not because you're bitter, but because you finally remembered how sacred you are. May peace follow you like a shadow. May strength rise in you like the morning sun. And may those who once misunderstood your quietness come to realize it was always your power, not your weakness. May your heart never again be pulled by guilt. May your spirit never again settle for spaces too small for your calling. You didn't lose them. They lost the privilege of you. And what you gained? You gained you, your voice, your clarity, your authority. You gained a life where you no longer have to dim your flame just to keep others from feeling uncomfortable. You gained access to a future unshackled from their expectations, their projections, their attempts to cage you. You are walking in divine liberation now, and that's something no one can take from you. Let them sit with their regret. Let them spin their stories. Let them try to rewrite the past to make themselves feel better. It doesn't matter anymore. The only story that matters now is the one you're writing for yourself. One where you're no longer a background character in someone else's drama, but the main character in your own destiny. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away because staying was hurting you. And now finally, it's your turn to breathe. So if these words hit home, if they felt like truth, like confirmation, like freedom, take a moment to reflect. Leave a comment. Type, "I'm free now," if that's your truth, or simply sit in silence and let the peace wash over you. Share this message with someone else who needs to hear it, someone who's still waiting for permission to leave. Let this be their confirmation too. They never thought you'd leave, but you did, and you left not broken, but whole, not begging, but bold, not empty, but finally full of yourself in the best, most sacred way. And now you're unstoppable. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being chosen. Thank you for choosing yourself. May this be your new beginning. May you never look back. And may you forever walk in the kind of freedom that terrifies those who once thought they owned you. Until next time, chosen one, keep walking, keep rising, and never forget who you are.